Welcome everyone to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification class. Thank you for coming tonight. All of those that are coming in, I know the snow is getting deep outside. West Texas is a lovely place to be this time of year. So please take your time, find your seats, and once again, we thank all of you overseas and that are joining us live via the internet. Once again, though, we're going to be in our character unit, which is the first of 5 junior high series, and we're going through this to get our mind set for the building up of this positive character development that we've been talking about. If you want to be turning over, we're going to start on page 45 tonight. Our last teachers, David and William, covered what is a healthy family, and we're going to look back into that briefly because we're going to continue on with that. We've covered what a dysfunctional family is in the past week, and we're looking at what a healthy family is right now. But we're going to put these two together. If we don't do it in this class, then the next teacher will, where we put together a dysfunctional and a healthy family, because we're going to find out we most possibly are a combination of both, and we'll put it that way for now. But looking back over to page 44, of course, William was covering, if you look at the very top there, it says there are many dysfunctional families where there is child abuse, alcoholism, substance abuse, but there are equally as many families that are loving and all members are respectful to each other. And one thing to remember that was mentioned, David brought out about the substance abuse and how it clouds the minds of parents. It literally blocks the minds from making sensible decisions, and that leads to a lot of dysfunctionality. When you look at what's taking place in society today and how hard it is to teach your children to make positive choices, how hard it is for us as parents or teachers in a classroom. When you think about being a teacher in a classroom, always being the positive role model, it's not always easy, especially when you have negativity that will be around you. Well, this is something that we're talking about where these parents are trying their best to be positive, but this loving that we're talking about, just imagine in your mind when someone is honest, that is love. When someone is respectful, that is love. When someone is responsible, that is love. When someone is compassionate, that is love. So think of love. A lot of people want to define love. Of course, if you look in the dictionary, it'll say an intense feeling of deep affection. I've heard people say, I love him to death, or I love to fight. And you think about it, and it's, well, how do you love to fight? Fight doesn't show the true definition of what love is supposed to be. Well, when someone's mind is clouded from these drugs or alcohol abuse, or there can be many other things that clouds the minds of people, parents, teachers, anyone susceptible to this. No one is immune from it. It can cloud our minds to where we say things like, I love to fight. I love to punish that child. I just get a thrill from it, just to let him know who's boss. Well, that's not love at all. That's not discipline at all either. We'll get into aggression and uncontrolled anger and thoughts and emotions that aren't controlled. But these are things that are found in dysfunctional families. But we'll find that we all still have some of this in us. Even though we may think that we could possibly think that we're coming from a healthy family, well, as we proceed further, we'll see that it can be healthy, but that doesn't mean there's room for improvement. But looking on here, if you look down to the second paragraph, it says, in families educated in positive moral character, appropriate affection is shown to all members. Now, appropriate affection, once again, doesn't mean that you're going around hugging everybody, It doesn't mean that you're always saying, every morning you go up and you just have to make sure you say, I love you. Now, there's nothing wrong if you do that. But I want you to think about, we'll look at this both ways. As a child, if you go up and you see your mom and dad and you tell them every morning, I love you, and then they say, well, hurry up and get ready for school. No. Well, you need to hurry up because you got to go. No. Is that truly showing love? It's not. And if a parent, what if a parent tells the child, I love you, now go to bed tonight, tomorrow you got to get up, go to school in the morning. And then the parent wakes up late, and then they start yelling and screaming at the child because now the child is going to be late, but the parent takes up their not waking up on time out on the child. You know, the last thing that child heard was, I love you, and they wake up to, get out of bed! What are you doing? We're running late. It's your fault. And we can think, nobody does that. Yes, they do. Yes, it is done. One thing that we as humans love to do is blame our shortcomings on someone else. That is something that is very natural for people to do, is to look at something, and the first thing, when we're children, it takes place more often. The first thing is someone else's name that comes out of our mouths. Well, why is that like that? Well, so-and-so here. You know, we love giving credit away when it's a bad thing. Well, these families show proper affection. Of course, this proper affection, as it said here, is displaying true love and concern, which means you show this through positive character traits, through positive interaction. Congratulations, appreciation, and sometimes a loving hug. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. Now, this is not to be confused, noticed, with inappropriate touch of sexual molestation, inappropriate touching. If someone's ever touched, and we're looking at this to put these things together, remember, if someone is ever touched, and this can be a hug, if someone doesn't want to be hugged and they don't feel comfortable with that, you shouldn't hug them. And it's okay. If a person says, no, that's not me, I don't like being hugged, that's fine. If that's what that person desires, or that's what that person feels comfortable with, and that's truly what makes a healthy family. Just because you have 3 children, one might not like the physical contact, and that's fine. I grew up in a family where there was 0 physical contact. There wasn't much hugging or saying, I love you, but you knew through the people's actions that they cared and that they loved you. Even though you never heard the words, and to be honest with you, when I was growing up, I never thought about it. Never thought about, well, no one ever tells me they love me. Because we always had the things that we needed, and we'll get into that, and things were put in place for us to where we could make successful choices. Nothing was given, but opportunities were presented. And we'll get into, that's what a positive family does, a healthy family does. But also looking down to the next paragraph, it says, in these families, speaking of healthy families, children communicate their needs to parents in a positive way. And it's very important that parents and children keep a line of communication that is open. If a child does not feel they can go to the parents and have a discussion, that's a breakdown in communication. If a parent doesn't feel they can have a discussion with a child, that's a breakdown in communication. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes there's a situation that arises to where outside help would be best used, to where a child has a situation, they want to talk about it, but they go to a counselor instead. That's appropriate, and sometimes very needed, because you don't want a child who has something that they just don't know how to tell their parent. And it doesn't mean it's a negative thing either. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. It's just something they want to get across to a parent, but they just don't know how to tell them. Sometimes you just go get outside help. You go get counselors, and counselors are not a sign of a weakness. Counselors are a sign of a strength. Whenever a healthy family recognizes there's a problem, they find an answer to it. And counselors can be a great tool, but it's a tool that must be used to be beneficial. So the communication, is open, and that can be in many different ways. And one we talked about is, if you don't feel comfortable talking, go get a counselor, or someone who's trusted to make sound decisions, someone who's proven to make sound decisions, not your best friend who's down the street and is younger than you. Go find someone that can help you make a sound, honest, and sincere decision. And then looking down further, it says, in these families, it's the last sentence of this paragraph here, it says, in these families, once again healthy families, the use of kind words is valued. And remember what a value is. It's something that we deem to be important. Now, if you value using positive words, kind words, this shows compassion, and this value, when you speak to someone with kindness, that shows the person that you appreciate them, that you value them. If you speak to someone very harshly, downgrading them, putting them down, using very derogatory words, curse words, things that tear down a person's self-concept or self-worth, as we'll read here in a second. Those are the things that destroy a healthy family. They hinder. It's like putting poison on a tree or a plant that's trying to grow. It's like putting poison on it, and then you expect for it to mature and to blossom. Well, it can't. We've hindered it through our actions. Notice it also says that these parents teach by example, which means they show it through their actions, that name-calling, teasing, and insults rob others of their self-worth or self-concept. And if you remember on page 40, we read about the self-concept and how a person sees themselves. And you can put that in for your notes, talking about the self-concept and how a person sees themselves. There was one other page I wanted you to put with it. Well, we'll get to that. Just go ahead. If you want to write pages 38, page 40, because we're going to get to that, but I don't want to spend too much time on it right at this point, but we're going to go back to that here shortly. Self-concept and a way someone sees themselves. It's very important. And notice it also says in this last paragraph, as William covered, in these families, physical and mental health are also valued. When you think about the mental health of a person, and we discussed this before, when someone is considered to have a mental problem, we tend to think that, they're a little bit loose upstairs. They don't have all their marbles. We can all go look in the mirror. We all got a little bit of mental problem, okay? And that's the honest fact. If you've ever had a situation where it's like, I just don't know what to do, and you get frustrated, that's kind of a mental problem, You kind of got to get help. And if you've never done that, you're just amazing. Because I don't know anyone that's ever been that way. We all get this frustration. And if you want to imagine, if you've had a healthy family and you've had a healthy life, you haven't been through any of this, physical assaulting, I would say, physical abuse, the deception that can be brought on by people. If you've never been through that and you're dealing with someone that has been through that, you don't realize the things they have to work through. It's like you have 3 races. And each of you have the same finish line. But the starting point for you might be 1 mile away, and the starting point for this next person might be 2 miles away, and the starting place for the third person could be 3 miles away. Because of the things that they've experienced in their life, and where someone can make a decision fairly quickly. Some people might have so many, the second guesses, where they're not sure that's what they want to do. And a lot of this comes from not having the benefit of this healthy family. But if you ever hear that someone has a mental problem, whatever you do, understand very quickly, it doesn't mean they're crazy. It doesn't mean that, something's missing upstairs. It just means they're trying to work through a certain situation and they haven't found the solution for it. They just need the solution to the problem. And we all have mental problems. Well, with that in mind, look over to page 45. Moving forward here, once again, healthy families, but we're going to constantly compare these to dysfunctional families because we're going to find out there's kind of a very thin line in the media between these two. On page 45, it says, in these families, once again, speaking of healthy families, there is consistency in daily routines. And, of course, you think of something that's consistent. The definition for consistency in the Merriam-Webster's, it means the quality or fact of staying the same at different times, especially the quality or fact of being, as it says, good or positive each time. In other words, no matter what is presented, people that have consistencies in healthy families will always, through patience and endurance, steadfastness, they'll take the time to find the positive answer, and they can consistently be counted on to do so through daily routines, because every day brings its own challenges and adversity. And none of us realize what's going to be here tomorrow. When I went to bed last night, I could see the ground. When I woke up this morning, all I could see was white stuff everywhere. And I'm not a fan of snow, but I'm thankful for it. My children are very differently. They love snow. That they did not get from me. As a child, I never loved snow. And that just goes to show how there can be differences in a family. They are just joyful about it, Me, I just can't wait to see the ground again. Without mud. That would be much better. But this consistency in daily routines, it says, in other words, there's a time for everything, and children know what to expect from day to day. Now, when it says there's a time for everything, it doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want to do. It means there's a time for the everyday basic necessities. You get up, you have breakfast, you go to your daily activity, whether it be school. Think of children as teachers when they come into your classroom. Think of the children, and this is a huge problem in schools today, that come to school and they didn't get there in time because sometimes the buses don't run properly, and they don't get breakfast that morning because there's nothing to eat at home. And they get their lunch, and that's the only place they're going to get food. So they get one meal and back home they go. And here in the United States, we can kind of lie to ourselves and say, well, not everybody gets to eat, everybody gets food. No, they don't. That's not true. And you can go through and search the internet if you're not familiar with this on how many school systems, when schools shut down because of COVID and there was quarantine, how many had to have extracurricular activity. They had to create things for school students of their district, to supply free meals because these students would not have eaten at any other time. If you live in Abilene, Texas, it was a huge thing on the news, and it was a huge deal. There were a lot of students, not measured in the hundreds, but in the thousands, that without those contributions made by the school systems, these students would have went hungry. Well, these are things that, as we talked about, when you're a teacher and you're teaching situations and you're teaching about certain instances that can take place in people's lives and activities that do or do not take place. Well, when you talk about children and parents that have time for everything, you know, as one of the teachers said years ago in a school, I'll never forget it, we all think it's the Leave It to Beaver family. You know, the ideal 1950 family with all these activities that are done and the family interacts and we get to do these things. Not really. Most times in today's society, as one of the teachers brought out last class, some children have everything they could possibly want in their bedroom and they never come out. And some parents like it that way. Well, where's little Johnny at? He's in his room where he should be. Well, what's he doing? Playing video games. What video games is he playing? I have no idea. You know, and then we wonder, why do children make the decisions they make? Well, as a teacher, you can imagine if you have this child goes in and plays video games all day, and this child goes to a family to where studying is important. First thing you do when you get home, you got to do your homework, and then you have to study, you have to read what you'll be going over in class the next day. There's a huge difference in the education level, and imagine the frustration of a teacher when you have these same students come back. Some of them study, some of them don't. Some of them do their homework. Some of them, they slept through the class the day before. They didn't go home and do any homework, and they have no clue to what you're talking about. And then as teachers, you have it thrown into, well, your students have to make passing grades or else you're going to be held accountable because we have a no student left behind policy. And when you think about all that being thrown on a teacher, it can be hard for a teacher to display positive character. And once again, what we're talking about with these families where everything is ideal, this is a beautiful scenario, and this is how things should be. But once again, as we progress, we'll see that it's not really that way. Now, as we continue forward, it says, you can feel safe in knowing that your parents will always make time to go grocery shopping and that you will always have food to eat. Now, of course, in today's time, you can pretty much have your food sent to your front door. You can get food delivered, you know, or you can, your parents, it's talking about parents being responsible for making sure you eat. Doesn't mean parents always go to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store today, and it's the first time I've been to one in probably 3 years. So, you know, it's I kind of get mine sent in the mail. That's what I choose to do because I just don't really feel that I have the time to go do things like that. And you consider what goes on when you go to the grocery store. Have anybody ever took a child to the grocery store? if you've ever taken a hungry child to the grocery store, you know to never do it again because they want everything. You know, I want that. I like chocolate. Well, you can't have that. Well, I like strawberry too. Well, you can't have that. Well, vanilla works for me. I'll take that. You know, well, I just want anything. Just give it to me. Whatever you got. You know, we can laugh at that and you know, think, well, a child just needs to be more mindful. As adults, you ever went shopping hungry? Everything looks great. You know, I've never ate that before. I'll try that too. I'll get this too. I think that looks great also. And you get home and it's like, I have no idea what I'm going to make with all this stuff. You know, and you start getting some mystery foods that you work in. But here, these children is talking about stability and consistency. It's not talking about everybody, you know, get in the family van and drive down to the grocery store and it's a family event. No, it's talking about having this consistency and this kind of guarantee that you're going to be able to eat. And there are communities that are set up that focus on things like that to where people might not be the richest of people, but they're guaranteed food to eat. And that right there is something that if we could offer more communities that, if more communities had guarantee of these consistencies where you just have to participate and you can eat. You know, think of that. If a child's told, if you participate, you can have food. Think of if an adult was told that. Just participate, you can have food. That's showing the building, is showing value, both people showing value, and it shows how to have this unity, this camaraderie, this equality to where both people are seeing value in each other. And that's very important, even in a healthy family. And you can even look in as a community, as a family. As you have community watch, that's a family that watches out for each other. But notice it says, in a home where there is a set routine, there's time for homework, baths, bedtime, and even fun time. You know, and fun time is usually, when I was growing up, fun time for us was sitting around and listening to my grandmother tell stories, or my father talk about how he grew up. You know, other fun times were just activities. In North Carolina, we used to go out and catch fireflies, these things that would sparkle in the night. I never knew what a board game was, didn't have any of those, never had a video game. I didn't miss those. And we didn't have the fanciest of toys. If we had bikes, it was one that somebody found on the side of the road, it was being thrown away. You know, and one thing that I thoroughly enjoyed was the family interaction we had and listening to how things were back in the early 1900s. That was interesting to me, very interesting to me. And I thought, if it's interesting to me, I think it would be interesting to others. Well, sometimes it's the way the person that tells the story gathers the interest. And I had someone in my life that could tell a really decent story. They could paint a picture very well. And she grew up in the early 1900s, and it was very enticing. We look forward to that. We would actually hurry up and get our baths done and try to gather around her just to hear her tell about how things were in those days. And, you know, and things are very different today. I'm talking about growing up in the late 70s and the 80s. Growing up today is a totally different world. Back then, there was no Nintendo, no cell phone, no internet. There was none of those things. Well, that's what teachers and parents compete against today. Well, in a healthy family, things are done, you know, together, but they're also done separately. Things can be done separately, but the things that are done are not involving things that tear a family down or that teach negative character traits. They don't teach, if you can imagine, giving your child a video game. And I'm not saying giving children video games is always negative. There's many educational games a person can play. But if you give a child a game to where the more rewards they get is from killing, chasing people down. There's video games today where children are rewarded for raping women, for abusing women, for kidnapping children. You can ransom them. And the police chase you the whole time and you're trying to get away. Now you can imagine what benefit, you as a parent, what benefit can your child get from something like that? You know, when your child grows up and does something that is absolutely an abhorrence and just an embarrassment. Well, why did we allow it to take place? And many people I know say this, listen, it's just a game. That's it, it's just a game. Everything is a teaching tool. And it's very important to realize the power of even music. Whenever we learn our ABCs, we learn it with music. That's how they teach you your ABCs. Whenever there's video games, if you've never seen them, they're packed with music to get the energy up, to get get you excited. And everything goes along with that. Well, would it be negative for a healthy family to say those video games are allowed in our house? That would be the healthy decision. Now, could someone say, well, that's not the way you should do. You should let your children do what they want to do. You can do that. You can let them do whatever they want to do. You just have to live with the choice you made by allowing them to do whatever they wanted to do. Now, I'm not saying don't give them the freedom to make choices. But if you stick the negativity in front of them, if you buy the poison for them to take, you can't get upset at anyone else if they suffer from what they're partaking of. These things can be, for some people, fun time and gathering is studying around and watching the TV. I know some people that like to gather around and watch things like Planet Earth. Some people like it, some people don't. There's nothing wrong with it. If you want to sit around and watch a movie, well, what's the movie about? I've seen movies that I thought were very educational. Some that are very old. Some that were filmed in 1939 even, that I thought were very interesting. It taught about times in America. But if you sit around and you watch movies to where, as one teacher was saying here not long ago, where, everybody roots for the bad guy to get away, how his mom would sit on the couch and root for Steve McQueen to get away because he was stealing something. But when he got in trouble, nobody rooted for him to get away. Well, a healthy family, and I know this can sound kind of hard sometimes, a healthy family will limit the negativity that comes in their house. They'll limit the things that are presented before the children. And that doesn't mean that you put up bars on your windows. You set rules and you're consistent with them. You can't say that we don't allow these things in our house and then one night you watch a really violent movie. Well, it's Halloween, so we're going to watch a gory movie. They're going to, like Friday the 13th or something. Nightmare on Elm Street. That's not being consistent. That's kind of showing that it's okay to break the rules sometimes. Well, a healthy family doesn't do those things. But notice here, it says everyone is assigned chores and contributes to how the family functions. And that's very important. Whenever you have a family, whether you have a small family or a large family, every person should play a role in the daily routine of the house. Everyone should. It's not set for one person to do everything. Everyone should play a role, and that shows people that the role of the house is important. Notice it says this fosters character traits such as responsibility and discipline. And turn over to page 7 real quick. 17, I think. Page 17 is where it's at. Responsibility. Remember, all of these things are learned. You're not born responsible. You have to be taught to be responsible. And that's what chores and helping to take care of the family's household. And it can be simple things, washing dishes, taking out trash. I learned when I was young, I didn't like to wash dishes, and I was taught very quickly, then drink from a dirty cup. I don't want to drink from a dirty cup. Then wash the dishes. It sounded okay after that, but it was, I didn't want to do it. And I think about when I tell my children, go do this. I don't want to do that. And I think that was exactly how I was. I wanted the benefit of doing it, but I didn't want to do it myself. And then, I had someone that was patient with me to show me the benefit. But this being responsible, notice here on page 17, it says being responsible is another trait you should want to make part of your character. So notice it's something we should desire. Being responsible means to be accountable and answerable for your actions. You will be known as a reliable person, someone others can count on. Someone who is irresponsible, unreliable, for example, such as a person who is always late when you plan to meet them, or they might not even show up at all. When they say they'll return something they borrow, they might return it damaged or in worse condition than when you lent it. And usually they are late returning it to you. Looking down to the next paragraph here, it says, responsible people are given more important duties because people know they can be counted on to do a job. And that's one thing to get across to our students/children. If we're parents, if we're teachers, that's really a reward system. Looking back over to page 45, when someone does something that is proper and they show responsibility, a reward system is giving them more to do, giving them more responsibility. And that's truly what children/adults, children that are coming into adulthood, it's really what they want. They want more responsibility. And the challenge is trying to figure out, do they have the tools to actually do what they think they want to do? And that really goes back, as a parent/teacher, more a parent or guardian, you have to look into the mirror and look and ask yourself, have I given them the tools so that they have the education to do what they want to do? Because if they've never been taught how to do it, don't expect them to have the tools. Because remember, we have to be taught to do positive things or negative things. No one is born a negative person, and no one is born a completely positive person. But just as responsibility we just read about is something that we have to teach them to want, and the more you're responsible, the more you can receive. It's a reward system. If you're responsible in this, then you can do this. Well, that's what a healthy family does. They don't look at it as, if you tell someone you have to earn everything, and I'm not saying that you don't have to work for it, but if you make it sound like an impossible task, where it's like buying lottery tickets. If you buy enough of them, I'm sure you'll win one day. No, you probably won't. You most likely, there's a lot of people that thought they were going to be millionaires when they went to bed and woke up with disappointment again the next day, and then they go and try it again. And then the ones that do win end up more miserable than the ones that lost. But when you think about a healthy family and this setting up a reward system responsibility, you show them that it's not as much earning, but just doing the right thing. Doing the right thing, you earn the right to do more things. But it's not that you had to sweat. Sometimes you do have to sweat and work hard for it. But it's just making the right choice. You have to try to get through them. And I say this knowing that we all fall short in this, that getting children, getting students to do the right thing is a reward system. If you make a right choice, you can be given more. If you do this, you can be allowed more. And that's very important, because if you tell a child, if you do this, you can have this, and then they don't do what you told them to and you give it to them anyway, that's not a healthy family. There's rules and guidelines that must be set up, and remember the consistency. But you also have to set, as we'll get into, responsible people set realistic goals. A healthy parents in a healthy family set goals that are achievable. They don't set goals that a child will never achieve and there's no way possible, or they set them so high that they could never get there. If a child wants something that should be set this high, then you have to set a stair step where they can take one step at a time, but they can achieve the goal they want, as long as it's a positive goal they're looking to achieve. And that's what a healthy family does. They provide the atmosphere to where this can be accomplished. And that's part of that development of character traits that's done. You show them making the right choice helps you to get better things, more successful things, longer lasting things in life. It's much better to know that you worked hard and bought the bike than stole the bike. And once again, a healthy family will create an environment to where people, they know they can get things, they know they can achieve things, but only if they make the right choice. And if you make the wrong choice, there's ways to fix that. And that's also part of a healthy family. If wrong choices are made, this is what we need to do to fix it. Provide escape routes, so to speak. And we all have to have them, and we've all used them. when we've made bad choices. It says often, back to page 45, often everyone in the family is busy with their own schedules. Spending time together is important because it helps you to appreciate your similarities and differences. These families find special things to do together that are pleasant and morally enlightening. Pleasant and morally enlightening. And I want to read to you enlightening, the definition of enlightening. Remember, morals are rules. So it's talking about these rules, and we're talking about enlightening with these rules. It means to give greater knowledge and understanding about a subject or a situation. So morally enlightening to one another, it means they're showing the benefit of keeping the rules. And this doesn't mean you sit down and someone has a gavel and they start, court is in session, these are the laws, these are the rules, this is what you must do to get a driver's license. No, you have to understand the benefits. This is what comes with this. And these are the rules that govern that. Rules govern everything in life. There's nothing in life that rules do not govern, and a healthy family recognizes that. But they look at the benefit of these rules. And even in a healthy family's life, these rules are never put down. And that is extremely important. If there's a rule that's for the benefit of a family, it is extremely detrimental for a parent to look at a child and go, that's a stupid rule. That rule makes no sense. I've lived my whole life. I never even heard of that rule. There's a lot of rules we haven't heard of that when we hear them, we find out if we keep that rule, that actually does help. It actually helps a lot. And that's something we have to keep an open mind toward, that rules are meant to keep us safe. And that's what is there to enlighten, to teach, to discuss. There's nothing wrong, when a child or a student in the classroom, when they say they want something, nothing wrong with having a want. Why do you want it? What's the purpose of it? I want $1 million. Why? What are you going to do with it? You're going to be a benefit. Like I said, there's people that win the lottery and their lives become miserable. I want a driver's license. I want a car. I want a truck. I want this. I want that. Why? There's nothing wrong with asking why. And when someone has a want, they should be able to explain, this is why. And if they can't explain why, then a healthy family, they work it out. They figure out why, and they do the pros and cons. Here on back to page 45, it says, the members respect each other and their possessions by always remembering to ask permission before touching, taking or borrowing an item. And this is important. Even in a family to where a parent, now this is very important to remember this. If you buy a child something and you give it to the child and you want to use it, as a parent, you should ask the child permission to use it. If you buy a child something, no matter what it is, say it's a book, you have the right to use the book if the child tells you, yes, you gave it to the child. But there's also, as a parent, you have the right to take things from a child due to disrespectful behavior or showing insubordination, or showing that they're not willing to keep the rules. Sometimes you have to ground, and when I say ground, it's you suspend a behavior to try to get someone's attention. It's not done to be mean. You're trying to get someone's attention. And that's part of that enlightenment. Correction and discipline, as we read a little while ago, is just meant to get attention. It's not meant to hurt. It's not meant to show that I'm the boss and you do this. In the instance, you're the parent or you're the teacher, and these things must be done as far as respect to the authority. But really, as a teacher and as a parent, we have to get in our mind the only reason that discipline is needed is to get someone's focus when they're leaving the right path. They're getting off course a little bit and they're heading down a way that can hurt them. And that can be a challenge, because as a teacher, say you have 30 students in your classroom, you can see things that you personally don't like. It's not your personality. And your students might like doing it. Does that mean it's wrong? No, it doesn't. Remember, we talked about these things for morality and the dividing line between right and wrong on page 8. And how we determine whether something is right if it brings harm to ourselves, someone else, or the environment. and if it's going to hurt things or damage things, then it's wrong. But if people, our children, say our children want to do, children like to comb their hair a certain way. If there's nothing technically wrong with how they comb their hair, then let them comb their hair that way. Some children like very interesting shoes. These big boots that I couldn't pick my legs up if I wore them. There's nothing wrong. And today that makes them a very smart person, by the way. If there's nothing wrong with what they're asking to do, let them be who they are. But if they're doing something that could bring harm, that's detrimental, and sometimes as a parent you can see it and they can't, that's when you have to take the time to explain to them. Sometimes it's more than just saying you can't do it. You got to take the time, this morally enlightenment, to explain. And that's very important. But once again, getting back into possessions, even if a parent buys a child something, you want to use it, ask the child. That's consistency in keeping the rules. Notice here it says they often take turns reading from a special book. And special books can be very different. When I was growing up, the special book that was used in my family was a Bible. That's what my grandmother always read to us, continually. Some people prefer history books. Some people prefer adventurous books. Some people prefer, it can be very basic things that you can read to a child. I have children that they want to read about tall buildings right now. I have no idea what drives that interest, but there's nothing wrong with it. They want to learn about them. I don't have that interest, but I see that they have the interest. There's nothing wrong with reading about it and the history that goes behind tall buildings and how things have taken place to reach this technology we have today. As a parent, you have to be able to look at it and go, what they're asking, there's nothing wrong with it, and they're wanting to be educated. Well, just because we're not interested in it doesn't mean we should go, nah, I don't want to do that. We should take the time. Be mindful. Healthy families do that. They evaluate, they weigh the options. If there's nothing wrong with it, then it's allowable. Notice it says, value the quality time you spend with your family and be thankful for each and every family member. We tend to think that family is always going to be around. But the fact is, a healthy family, as it grows up, they create their own families. That's what healthy families do. Healthy families don't all live in one house until they're all 110. That's not a healthy family. A healthy family grows, and it continues to grow, and it grows even more. And notice here at the very bottom of the page it says your family can also be your friends. And that's very important, because if you cannot look at a family member as a friend, then there's a problem, because that means you're looking at them as an enemy. And healthy families always try to find the best, the positive things in each other. Turning over to page 46, notice it says another important aspect of a family trained with moral character is to resolve all conflicts by finding the peaceful solution that shows respect for other family members. And once again, a conflict is defined as a disagreement between two or more people, but as the last class they were speaking about, I think it was William that mentioned that individuals can have conflicts themselves. And they can harbor those things very deep down inside, and it can cause problems in the family because they don't talk about them. But notice here, it says that an aspect of a family trained, which means they're molded, they're shaped, they're guided, they're taught. They have to be guided, molded, trained, taught in these things. It's just not, you just don't have a family. It's like starting a business. You don't start a business, put a sign on the door, turn an open side on, and start collecting money. If you want a successful business, it's very hard work. And there's a lot of things that you don't get paid for a very long time when you do a successful business. When you start a family, it's a lot of hard work, and it doesn't mean there won't be ups and downs. There's always going to be ups and downs. But a healthy family examines, and they take the tools they've been trained to use, and that even means that if they've done something negatively, they go back and they remember the tools they were given, and they fix the problems, and they apologize, and they work out the solution to the matter. And that means knowing that if you did something wrong to a family member by saying something harshly, you go back and you fix it. You don't leave it undone. Once you realize it's pointed out to you or you acknowledge it yourself, and if we can acknowledge it ourselves, if we wait for someone to point it out to us, we have to realize that we're not very strong in what we're supposed to be doing that's proper. When we realize that it's wrong, we should be man enough, woman enough, positive enough to go back and apologize or to make it right. But if we have to be, reminded, hey, you did this, you need to go fix it. Well, it takes a friend to do that to you, to let you know, hey, there's a problem here. Go fix this before it gets out of hand, because it will. It can get out of hand. But notice it also says that no family member should ever purposely cause his or her spouse, child, or sibling injury or abuse. And, remembering injury, look back over, I think it's page 38. It's page 38. Because we think of injury as jerking a child's arm, doing something mean physically to the child. But notice once again at the bottom of page 38 here on the left-hand side of the page, it says emotional and verbal abuse. It says even though physical pain is not inflicted, emotional and verbal abuse are just as damaging. Years ago, the National Committee for Prevention of Child Abuse made the public aware of this form of abuse by displaying a poster that read, "Words hit as hard as a fist." Words such as, "You're stupid. You can't do anything right. I wish you were never born," cause rejection, fear, and resentment. And then you have this over to the side where a mother is looking at a child that broke a glass, has dropped something, spilled it, and notice they're saying, "You're so stupid you can't do anything right." And if you look back over to the left-hand side here at the bottom in the gray box, it says, every year, over 18,000 children in the United States alone are physically abused, and many more are emotionally and sexually abused. But think of how you would feel if someone who is a person you look up to, and they look at you and go, "You're so stupid. You can't do anything right." And then think of how much worse it would be if it had been better if you were never born. 42,000 abortions last year. That's pretty much saying it would have been better if I had just aborted you. Think about what that would do to the mind of a child. That's the person. Remember, parents are supposed to be the first teachers. And if your teachers that you're looking up to say those kind of things to you, that's where the mental health problems come in. So always be mindful when you see someone that life is challenging. How would you feel if someone told you it'd been better if you'd never been born? Should have aborted you anyway. And we can say, people don't say that. Yes, they do. People truly say that. They truly talk to their children that way. It's not always burning them with cigarettes or sexually molesting them. Sometimes it's saying words to them that, better off, that this world would be better off without you. And many people can say, well, I don't think children suffer that much. And I always say, then someone needs to explain to me why the leading cause of death for 13 and 14-year-olds is suicide. If someone can do that and tell me that these children don't suffer, I'll listen to them. But until we can put an end to it, we need to acknowledge there's a huge problem in society and we need to change. We need to put positive character back in the lives of families. That will spread out to the children. Continuing on here on page 46, it says, siblings should never fight, shove, or push each other, nor should the adults physically injure each other or their children. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever had brothers or sisters. I didn't have any sisters, but I had 2 brothers. And I heard do not shove, do not punch more times than I can count. And it was always told to us. And I know as a child, we would look to see when the parents wouldn't look, and so we could get a quick punch in. And I remember I learned my lesson on shoving and pushing. You've always heard, don't run through the house. Well, I'm chasing my younger brother right through the house. And it was a summer day, and he runs through the front door going outside and slams the glass front door just in time for my arm to go through it. And I learned that day, if you cut an artery, blood shoots quite a distance away. And the only thing that helped me, I was blessed enough to have a father that realized you got to put the arm up, put a tourniquet on it really quick, go to the hospital. Life got real that day. Got very real that day. Because before then, it was like, you keep saying don't run through the house. Why? We do it all the time. You just don't know about it. And then one day, well, it's all it takes is one time. One time and someone can actually suffer. I always wondered, I wonder what it would have been like if my parents hadn't have been there. Because there were a time and day where, your older brother would watch you. And older brother's outside doing something, life would have been very different if it had worked out that way. And I always tell my children, I always have a memory of that day, because to this day I still have glass comes out of my arm. Pieces of glass always come out. They come up and you have to get them out. And the younger brother had no intentions of doing something like that. We were both being disobedient running through the house. It wasn't his intention for my arm to be cut that bad. It wasn't his intention for my arm to be cut, period. And we were in a healthy family where we were given many things that were positive. But we as children chose to do it. And the reason I'm saying this, it can be a challenge to get your children to not push, shove, and punch. And if you think that, well, if they pushed each other and they punched, so I'm failing. No, it means keep reminding them. Keep working with them. Hopefully it doesn't get to the point, because I know for myself, there come a time to where we just quit doing it. We stopped doing it. And we didn't do it anymore. We were young when we stopped. But we were constantly reminded. And there was never a time where someone, you can imagine, I've seen this before, where a child punches someone and the parent slaps the child. Don't you ever hit someone again. Really? You just hit me. Don't ever hit someone and you hit me. Well, this is the confusion that can be put in the mind of a child. But notice it says, violence against others violates the right to be safe and free from harm. And you can put a note there to see page 8. Always go back to page 8 in that very quickly. If you turn over to page 8, just so you can remind yourself of what we're talking about, is that very fine line that determines what is right and what is wrong, and what is moral and what is immoral. And notice it says once again there below the box, morality can be divided into 3 basic categories: behavior and attitude toward all life, behavior and attitude toward possessions and property, and behavior and attitude toward the environment. And the environment we're speaking of right now is the household, the family life that we all have to be a part of. Now, continuing on here on page 46, it says, does this mean that in a family no one ever becomes angry? First thing we have to acknowledge, there's nothing wrong with becoming angry. When someone grabs a chair and throws it, that's not anger, that's rage. When someone hauls off and hits someone, that's not anger, that's rage. When someone starts yelling and cursing, that's not anger, that's rage. That's uncontrolled anger. And remember, anger is a secondary emotion. It's instigated, brought forth by a primary emotion. So notice here it says, no, of course, people become angry, irritable, frustrated, and annoyed as they try to overcome these traits. And if you become angry, we become angry because most of the time we just don't agree with something. There's something that's just not right. But that anger needs to be controlled, and that's what a healthy family does, and that's what positive people do. Even though they become angry, they control their anger. They don't lash out. They don't hit. They don't start cursing and screaming at each other. They learn to control it. And once again, notice it says they tried to overcome these traits. It's a process of getting it out. But if you don't put it in your children, you can get ahead of the ball game there. But most families, the majority, all usually do it. The important thing is that anger and frustration are expressed without name-calling, cursing, pushing, shoving, or kicking, because family members are respectful to each other. And once again, being respectful, if you remember, we read that. I think it's on page 14. On page 14, it says, respectful means to value others as important as yourself and to allow that to show through your actions and attitudes. And once again, to value something means you deem it to be important. You deem that person to be important. And if you show someone they're important to you, that makes for a much better relationship. That draws people much closer together. Continuing on here, it says, they are also patient by trying to help each other solve their problems or mistakes. We all make mistakes and we all have problems in our lives. A healthy family searches to make the right choice. And even if a bad choice has been made, even if someone makes a bad choice or a mistake, that doesn't mean it can't be fixed. And if a child makes a bad choice or if they make a mistake, especially in the teenage years, yelling and screaming and telling them how they shouldn't have done it just isn't going to help. Imagine how we feel if we do something and we knew we shouldn't have done it. And then here comes someone telling you and how you shouldn't have done that. Why did you do it? Well, I know I shouldn't have done it. Why did you do it? Well, I can't really explain why I did it right now. I'm not even for sure myself. The help is examining, it was wrong. And that's the very and most important thing when a child or a young teenager does something in a family, that we as a parent, the first thing we need to find out, do you understand it was wrong? And if they say yes, explain why was it wrong. And have them tell you. So you can see what have you taught them and what have they learned? Are they getting all the points? And then, what do you think can be done to fix it? And then guide them toward fixing it. That's what a healthy family does. A dysfunctional family criticizes, puts down, and reminds them of how worthless they actually are. That's what a dysfunctional family does. And I say remind them how worthless they are. I'm not saying that as a fact. I'm saying that is what some people do. Notice it says they tell each other why they're angry or sad and use positive communication to express their feelings and forgiveness. Now, this doesn't mean it's instantaneously. Sometimes, even in a healthy family, people just need to take time and be apart. Sometimes it's best to wait a few hours, especially if you're angry. It's not a weakness to say, I just don't want to talk right now. I'd rather wait and talk in a little bit. That's what healthy families do. That's what positive people do. They take the time to gather their emotions back together, and then they talk. Notice you see here the right and the wrong way. The first one, it says, I really don't like it when you take my things without asking. Please don't do it anymore. Notice it was a very proper way of asking someone not to do it. And then the girl's reply was, I didn't realize that it bothered you. I'll ask from now on. I apologize. Well, that's proper, and that's the ideal way. But notice you have the wrong way here. Why don't you leave my stuff alone, you jerk? Don't call me a jerk, you stupid. People don't do that. Yes, they do. Brothers and sisters will do that to each other. Sadly, mothers and fathers will do that to each other in front of the children, and then they wonder, well, why does the children act that way? This is one thing we have to acknowledge. If a teacher does that to their students, they need to go get help. They have a problem. If you have a couple that's married, and you fight and argue with each other, you physically abuse each other, you need to go get help. That's not a weakness. That's a fact. We need to go get help if we do that. All of us. If we abuse or yell or scream at our children and put them down with negative terms, we need to go get help. It's not a weakness to go get help. It's a weakness to, as long as nobody knows about it, I'm okay. If you think nobody knows about it, people know about it. Our actions show. These things show in our everyday life. The way we conduct ourselves, they show. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I need help. I need help in fixing this. There's nothing wrong with finding someone who you trust in. Guidance counselors are the best in helping with those things. Having someone you can trust to talk to is always the right thing to do. Have someone outside the situation give you guidance. That is what a healthy family will do. Notice here the very last part of this. We're going to finish up page 46 so we can get ready for the next class with the following teacher. It says, negative communication and showing disrespect for others do not solve anything. In fact, they create more problems. On the other hand, treating others with respect and using positive communication resolves conflicts and creates peaceful solutions, a goal everyone should strive for. And that's one thing that we're talking about a healthy family does, is you set goals, realistic goals, and you create the environment for these goals to be accomplished. If you set goals and then the environment is created to where a person could never, ever reach the potential that you've told them they could, they're going to feel like a failure. They're literally going to look at themselves as though, I'll never live up to what was set for me to be or what I've been told I can do. It's like telling your child, you can be a doctor one day. Oh, great. And when it comes time for college, you'll have to pay for that yourself. You know how long it takes to be a doctor? It takes a long time. You know, set realistic goals. Set realistic challenges for your family. As a teacher, set realistic challenges for your students. Give them things that they can achieve. That way they can look back and go, hey, I did it. I actually can do it. Then give them something else. I can do it. So at this time, I thank everyone once again for coming. I know it's snowy and cold outside, but thank you all for coming. Now the next class will be on 113. 113, it'll be at 5:30, and we'll discuss more about how we're all just somewhere in between this, and we're all looking to get better. Thank you once again.